ile banasema inchi yetu ni ya mali sana, me kuko ile contrast, donc mkaaji mwenyewe anakuwa maskini.
Tunakuwa na cobalt, tunakuwa na cuivre, tunakuwa na zinc, tunakuwa na uranium. Tuna bintu bya mingi mu Kongo, lakini maendeleo hakuna.
In terms of the world reserve, the DRC is estimated to have 65% of the world cobalt reserves.
Kama Kongo ni nchi ya mali, me haiwezi kufanya vitu vya hivi. Hii ni abomination, criminalité hii.
Cobalt is a very important product for the industry in general, for the EV industry in general, because it's really parts of that we call the NMC batteries, the nickel manganese cobalt battery, because they're really allowed to have to storage more power in those batteries.
If you look at any kind of building structure that comes from steel, which comes from coal, if you look at our cell phones, especially smartphones, and then you look at laptops, that all needs to have cobalt, lithium batteries. These minerals, especially copper and cobalt, of which the DRC has plenty of reserves, these are becoming even more and more important because it's really at the center of this kind of new green technology compared to other minerals.
Democratic Republic of Congo.
In 2006 and 2007, after the election, the former President Joseph Kabila was looking for money to invest in its what is called project in the DRC, infrastructure project. Unfortunately, he couldn't find financing from traditional donors coming from the IMF, World Bank, and Western countries. That's why he turned to China to find financing for its project.
国家主席习近平26号下午在人民大会堂东门外广场。
The Sicomines deal opened doors and led the way for many Chinese mining activities in the DRC. It was very symbolic because we are talking about a 6 billion mining deal in the DRC. That deal alone signaled the DRC was welcome and open to Chinese mining investment in the DRC.
So what China did was it started to look outward and it started to think, okay, we could go to Africa where there is a massive infrastructure deficit and we can, as a way to get African governments to agree to have us on board, well, we can offer them infrastructure loans. So we will give them money to finance the project up front, and we will also bring our own firms in to do it. And at the same time as China was doing that, it was also saying, well, let's try to secure some mineral rights as we go along, because then, the infrastructure projects, it's just to keep these companies busy for a few years. But the mineral rights is really about securing China's future, for the next few decades.
Out of the 6 billion agreement, 3 billion was supposed to be put in infrastructure and 3 other billion being put in mining investment.
So for the Kabila-led administration, it was really good to be associated with infrastructure development, because then, Kabila can leave behind this legacy of, having concluded this fantastic deal. That then raises the question of why was this deal actually signed? What is the trade-off here? What was going on at the time, and what exactly was happening with these negotiations? And there have been obviously a lot of allegations that there was a lot of corruption involved as well at the time of signing the deal.
Nous avons 1 million. Hein. Nous avons 1 million maintenant. Et plus avant, c'était 300 000. Puis la ville commence à grandir avec le mining. Et les gens ont mis quand même au monde. Hein. Ça, c'est Manica, c'est le Manica, qui est vieux comme le temps. Ça, c'est la clinique Sicomines. Oui. Ça, c'est le stade Sicomines. Le Sicomines a construit toute la ville de Colombie. Les richesses dans les mines. Les mines, c'est une affaire de gros sous. À l'époque, la Sicomines avait la totalité de parts, 100% d'actions dans la Sicomine. Vous voyez comment est-ce que les gens vivaient. Ici, les gens ne pouvaient pas travailler, mais la conduite de la Sicomine nourrissait tout le monde, faisait qu'on paye tout le monde. Mais quand on a investi avec le multipartisme, on a voulu favoriser les sociétés minières. Donc nous, on nous donne moins 20% dans le trésor public.
But the main country that's much more present in the cobalt and copper industry in the DRC is the Chinese. They represented 67% of cobalt production last year in the DRC. And out of the 62 companies that exported cobalt last year in the DRC, 37 of them were Chinese companies. That just tells you how much dominance they do have on the cobalt and copper industry in the DRC.
Sicomines didn't enter into this agreement in a very strong position. So after it did privatize and after the mining sector was liberalized, it actually did want to draw in other private shareholders, but it really struggled to. So China came in at a really opportune moment where Sicomines didn't really have many options. So when I first looked into the details of the Sicomines Pact, I was a little bit horrified, and I think the part that stood out to me the most, as I wouldn't understand why the DRC government would negotiate this kind of term, was the fact that as part of the joint venture, the companies involved don't have to pay tax. They are exempt from paying tax. And this includes, your corporate tax, but also no kind of mining royalty either. So, you've got this really big deal signed. Then President Kabila called it the deal of the century, but deal of the century in what sense? Because it's going to be hugely profitable, especially if copper and cobalt prices continue to pick up and stay so central for this global energy transition. But the state is not really going to get the benefits of that. It's going to be much more about extraction than really about the state getting revenues, from one of its most important reserves.
Pana ile ya kule kwangu ilikuwa ya mzuri. Ilikuwa ya mzuri. Ndio. Na mulikuwa moto, bintu vyote vilikuwa yamo, sofu mai njo atukwe nayo. Lakini pale tunaanza kushota mai, hapa ukwe mbari. Huyu njo baba mzazi. Njo ilikuwa rafiki ya baba tuko naye ule anatuchungako. Bale ni batoto yangu. Ndio. Na ule na yeye ni mtoto yangu. Pale ni mie na mke wangu. Tunashikia mamirimiri asema no, kunapasha kuya entreprise moya kwa kuuza. Na ile entreprise kama inakuya itadelokalize bantu.
Ananunua kama banakuwa na ile makartasi yao ile banakuwa kuonesha, atasema se toka mi nisha kuuza hii hifadhi kule juu bale nani ku national bali nisinye hii mkanda kontra mie ni fazi yangu bobeko nenda l'encontre ya ile. Sasa sisi hatuna na ile nguvu, nani atetusemea kama tuko nalia? Tulikuya na reunion moya bali Twitter ku IBGDH ule kuna sindikiza makominote juu bafa nini babaripe makuta mzuri. Mebatu baritoa malalamiko ya kama serikali yepana kubasikia na kubasindikiza juu ya bale bageni beko nakuya banze kubaprendre en charge vile na pashwa. Banabahamisha, bengine banabapatia makuta ya mingi, bengine makuta kiloko, bengine banasema hatutaondoka kufatana na sheria ya code minier. Vile banasema napasha bajenge bantu komponi ya mzuri mbele ya kumutosha pale.
Hapa kama mimi nafika hapa ntuka roho inanyumaka sana. Kama mimi nafika hapa mimi naona hivi ntuka roho inanyumaka. Ndio mpango yangu hivi. Ndio mpango wangu. Hapana ta jumu watamo. Ndio patwa mpango yangu hapa. Hapa moya. Hii kwanza hapa. Hivi. Kwenda hivi. Mpango moya ingine yangu ya pili ilikuwa pale.
On a mis un programme de délocalisation. On a construit des maisons à Samoukinda. Pour certains, on a payé quand même de l'argent. Ils sont partis. Mais c'est le projet qui n'est pas fini totalement à Samoukinda. Mais la portion là est quand même prise par CEDEM, hein, qui, lui, de bonne foi, a quand même donné ce qu'il pouvait donner.
Ndio fasi tuliwaza kuishi na watoto na mimi na jamaa yangu yote. Mimi na watoto 11. Mais unaona tumashambre tuwili na ka salonga moya. Hakuna umeme, hakuna toilette, hakuna nini kukupaki. Sasa nitaishi je na watoto mwi condition bali letake. Milango hakuna. Siki milango baliweka tu ni malata paki viangalia malata iko na 6 ans. Ndio vinesho kwanza kukachika. Siki hakuna kitu alifanya. Ilikuwa tu ni ujanja mtupu, kudanganya tu watu bure, wateso tu bure. Tenti maison ndio ile kubwa. Bali yenga. Hata sisi watu tulikuwa na 700 maison. Hata kule wanaenga tu 20 manyumba. Tena wanajenga ni 2 chambres. Tulitembea. Tulifika mafasi yoyote. Tulifika ku assemblée provinciale. Ni kule watupatiaka jibu kusema tutaifuatilia. Hata tukamuona député moya alikuwa chargé wa délocalisation. Ni ule arrange kutufuatia nayo ile situation. Tulifuata nayo mais jusqu'alors barisema hakuna jibu. Na leo hii tunasema na nyinyi hakuna jibu. Una deja ndio mavoka tulisema ya batoto wakati unachuma unaujisha watoto unapata fedha unakula ndio shoma na deja mafui ile chanja kupanga maembe hiyo ile chanja kupanga mais ai bénéficier mon
watu bengine nje bako na bénéficier
paka bale ba security
pale sijui hakuna namna wewe kuingia mtatoko mna nini hakuna namna kuingia huko ndio fashi yetu kwa makao yetu ndio hapa. Tuanze sema ndio village yetu na China tali. hakuna tutuwaka ile tu tunafika mukwa raporo tutapeleka
tunapaka tu anja bado
Kama Kongo ni nchi ya mali, me haiwezi kufanya vitu vya hivi. Hii ni abomination, criminalite hii, ni kuua muntu eko mzima. Lwa inasema pakutosha muntu inapasha afanye nini? Bamutengeneze fazi ile batamuweka bayenge conforme ya bien. Kule atenda atakutanisha hospital, atakutanisha mai, atakutanisha moto, atakutanisha barabara, atakutanisha masomo ya mtoto. Sasa munamondosha muville, munaenda kumpeleka mule mupori, hakuna njia, hakuna mai, hakuna moto.
Il devait faire mieux que ça, hein? Parce qu'il y a une coopérative, hein? C'est CMDS qui est à Kapata, qui a construit un centre. Il est mieux que ça.
There have been reports of abuse, human rights abuse in certain Chinese companies, not a lack of respect of ESG standards, pollution cases and everything. We've heard a lot of that. And there have been extensive reports by local NGOs, international NGOs, talking about those issues.
With this specific deal with the Sicomines Pact is that we have to say what was the trade-off that was happening at the time, because we're not seeing these kinds of benefits that have been happening. With the terms that were negotiated before, we are hearing of people, forced off land and things like that. This deal benefits China more than it benefits the Congolese state.
On one hand, they invested a lot when, let's say it, many Western companies were not willing to invest or to come into the DRC. The Chinese took the risk and came and invested in that risky country that we have today. That also cannot be denied. That's a reality.